So we're escaping France here at the end of Daryl Dixon's season 2 with just one episode to go for the season, and that's the big plot of the episode. We gotta get back to the airplane, we have to rescue the pilot, and we have to save Laurent as Lo Sang is on their tail. I think that's why this episode mostly is pretty solid, because it stays focused on that relatively simple plot with some good scenes along the way. The standout scene that was my favorite was definitely the catacomb scene, where our cast kind of becomes the horror movie monster lurking in the shadows and picking people off one at a time. That was a great scene, and we even got some emotional stuff with Daryl and Laurent, and even Code Ron and Laurent have a great connection in this episode. But the main thing I think that fans want to see is Daryl and Carol back on screen together. And now we have a full episode of it. It really feels like this is what the show was meant to be all along. Carol and Daryl on the road, doing a mission together, united as one. So that's what we get in this episode, and that's why it's pretty satisfying to see. So we're wrapping everything up relatively quickly here at the end of the season, and I'm not necessarily satisfied with the story arc as a whole and everything kind of wrapping up. But this episode in isolation, I really did think was pretty solid. I enjoyed the episode overall, and the big connective tissue tying everything together, the major theme in this episode, is guilt. Every character is dealing with something they did in the past, some mistake that they made, grief and loss. And definitely Daryl's thinking about Isabel in this opening shot here. He's distracted while Carol's trying to fix the car, and we know what's on his mind. And it's something that felt a little bit lacking in the previous episode, was Isabel's death happened, and then after that it was not really directly addressed as much as we kind of felt like it should have been. So we're kind of reinforcing that here at this opening scene of the episode, that Daryl's still got that on his mind in the background, and Carol has her own sense of guilt that she's dealing with. She's still dealing with the guilt from Sophia from 12 years ago, and she's dealing with the guilt of lying to Ash and all of the things she's done to get to this moment. So I think that that is good that we have some payoff for that in this episode. And now we have Code Ron, and his role in this episode is kind of redeeming himself and forgiveness and finding faith and stuff that I think is really juicy thematic stuff. That's a little surprising, because I thought, we're used to the villains in the show just kind of getting killed off. And by this show, I mean this franchise overall. We're used to the villains dying, and that's something that happens in this episode too, where we had one episode with Lo Sang being the main villain, and then he gets killed off by the end. So we got Janae getting killed off last episode, and then Lo Sang's the villain, and then his number two, who I don't even remember what her name is, she was barely had any lines of dialogue in the show, and now she's the main villain for this finale. So that just isn't as satisfying as what they're doing with Code Ron here, where he has a story arc and changes over time, and now he's kind of on our side, and he has a connection with Laurent in this episode because they're both dealing with survivor's guilt, where everybody that each of them cared about ended up dying, and they feel like they are responsible for it. So they have this connection in this episode that I wasn't necessarily expecting, but it makes perfect sense when you see it in context. And now we got a scene with Daryl seeing straight through Carol, which was very satisfying. He just immediately picked up on her BS that she was lying to Ash, and he doesn't let her get away with it. He's like, no, I'm going in there. You could do the talking, but I'm going in there. He just stuck to his guns, didn't let her obfuscate or any of that. So that was really satisfying to see as well. We go back to the plane, and we see Ash is up to his old tricks. He's got traps and stuff to protect the airplane, but he's mysteriously off somewhere, presumably trying to get fuel. And then we see a person caught in the trap, and this person, we find out later in the episode, is from the bar, and they were sent to find the airplane because they were spotted flying in. And it's a little convenient, of course, but of course, the planes are loud, and there aren't a lot of them in this timeline. So it makes sense that they would want to find where that plane is and take it for themselves if they can. So that's what happens here. This guy was caught in the trap, and Daryl puts him out of his misery, even though I do wonder if they could potentially, fix him back up again. Was he for sure going to die? But you just have to accept that, I guess. And then we immediately smash cut to Ash. Where is Ash? He's trapped in a car because he was trying to escape. The car wouldn't start. and then he tries to knock the zombie back so he can run away, and then the zombie pushes the car door back and knocks him in the head, and he has a concussion. So that's the plot of this episode. We got to get to him, we got to save him, and then we have to leave for America. But we have another obstacle in the way, and that is that turns out Laurent is changing his mind, and he doesn't actually want to go. So this is an emotional scene that I think really worked in context. Watching the episode, you really feel the disappointment that Daryl feels. You know, he's been searching for purpose this whole time, and he said he found it. He didn't know what he was searching for, and then he finds it, and then Isabel dies, and Laurent doesn't want to go back with him. So you feel this like crushing feeling that Daryl is feeling, and it's definitely an emotional part of the episode. But just as a viewer, I just know that it's not going to end here, right? And we just know Laurent has to go with Daryl eventually. So it just kind of feels like a roadblock. And then we're wandering around this community a little bit, and Carol has another flashback scene, and she's still dealing with the guilt. Her guilt is about Sophia from 12 years ago. And I like that they address that in this show, with Carol having her own show. Of course, losing a child 12 years later, you're still going to be distraught over it. That's something you can never really get past fully. So I like that. It's just these scenes definitely come off as a little forced, but I understand what they're going for with this person dressed the way Sophia was dressed. It's just, I don't know what exactly it is about it. I don't know that we needed the flashbacks to see Sophia coming out of the barn, because that's seared in my memory. And we're doing this like every episode now, and it just feels like we know we were there. We don't need, like, I know I look at that, I think of Sophia, you could see her reaction in it. Just a little subtlety I think could have gone a long way here, but it's still definitely tying in with the theme of grief. So overall, I'm definitely good with it. And here we have the one scene in the episode where we just straight up talk about the theme. And again, lacking a little subtlety, but I understand that this conversation feels realistic, where they're talking about survivor's guilt in the sense of, why did we survive and so many other people didn't? Is it actually bad luck that we're still here, etc.? And it's a good scene. Now we're going back to the bar from last season, and this bar slash nightclub is pretty much just a plot device for, we need to find something and we need to go to where people congregate to be led to that thing. So it's really just a plot device to get us, okay, we have no way of realistically locating where this guy with the plane is. So we go here, and then we end up seeing the gas canisters that we recognize from earlier this season, and then we ask those people where they went. So it's really just following breadcrumb trails, exactly what it was doing last season as well. So that's kind of what this bar is. It's just a plot device to get us from point A to point B. But we get to see a little before and after, because it's a little bit edgier this time around. And now we got the Mona Lisa here, so we get to see a little bit of progression here. And of course, it has new ownership now that the guy from last season is Laurent's father, has been taken care of. So I like that we're going back there. It definitely is like saying goodbye. It's our goodbye tour to France. We're going back to the rooftop community. We went back to the nightclub. We're just saying goodbye to all these places that we've been all along. But I like this scene here. This was the surprise of the episode for me, was Caudron and Laurent having their connection and talking about faith and how Caudron, why did he change his mind? Why did he save them last season? That was a question I was asking. Didn't seem realistic at the time, but now that we see the thought process behind it, like the fact that he started to feel God's presence and that his decisions actually mattered, all of a sudden now he wants to do the right thing. So I like this scene a lot, and it feels crucial to the story to kind of complete Caudron's arc and why he made the decision he made last season. And it was an effective scene, and it was one of the more emotional scenes of the episode, so I thought that was good. Now Lesang's people are there, they're going to round him up, and meanwhile, Carol and Daryl, they go to this base that we were at last season, again, just like our goodbye tour, going places we've been, and we now find the car where Ash is located. So here, Carol kind of conveniently finds Daryl's recording from the first episode, and I do like it. It's a callback. It's a little convenient, but I'll definitely take it because we knew we were coming back here in this episode, so it makes sense. And then we see the zombies outside of the car. I do wonder if, he's been passed out there for 2 days. Would the zombies still be surrounding it? Wouldn't they get distracted by something else? Over time, they would just kind of wander off, I would feel like, because he's like unconscious in there or not moving around, not making a lot of noise. I would have thought that they would have found something else to do, but zombies act in strange ways. Maybe they just kind of continually draw more zombies to them. So as some wander off, more wander in. I don't know. That's just me overthinking it, as I tend to do, but it's definitely something that was on my mind, but it doesn't hurt my enjoyment of this episode at all. So we're trying to distract Lo Sang so that the child and Codron can escape, and we have a fun scene where we fight some zombies, and we get in the vehicle, and Lo Sang has his speech about, peace and all that, and bringing everybody together, and that they need the child Laurent as proof. And I like Fallow's speech here where, he talks about, if you need proof, what is faith for? And that, his Lo Sang's faith actually wasn't strong enough. And I like that, tying that theme of faith together, putting a bow on it. And they have a symbolic thing at the end of the episode that kind of shows, maybe he didn't really have enough faith to begin with. So I think that was a good scene there. And then we're trapped in the car. And I really like this car scene. This was a lot of fun. And we had a little bit of fun with the fast zombies in this episode. I thought we were done with them in the last one, and we're bringing them back. The serum is in this car. And I got to thinking in this episode, I was like, wait, it's a serum, but they don't have a heartbeat, right? Do zombies have a heartbeat? I would have thought that they didn't. So where is the serum going exactly? How does it get through the body? Overthinking it again, but it's definitely worth mentioning. But regardless of that, we got a fast zombie scene in this episode, and it's fun because the fast zombies, they want to get in the car so badly that they just completely obliterate all these zombies around them. And I love the camera circling around, and you don't exactly know what's happening, where everything is. So it was a fun scene, and then the fast zombies smash through the window, and then you see the carnage on their way out. It was a fun scene, man. I like that one. That's another standout in this episode as well. And now we have this scene here where Daryl's trying to convince Carol that she has to tell the truth and do the right thing, which I think is interesting because, Daryl's kind of a practical guy, and he kind of, I think, would realize that it might jeopardize their ticket home, but maybe he doesn't really care if he goes home or not. I don't know. It's definitely complicated, and it feels like there's more to it than what Daryl's saying. But at the same time, we're going back to the nightclub, and now they need fuel. So, of course, conveniently, Lo Sang and his people show up at the nightclub at the same time. Ash, to me, I like that they tried to add a little depth to him this season, but I do tend to lean towards he's mostly a plot device just to get us over here. And this episode tries to do a little bit more to add depth to that, but they just kind of had him wander off for several episodes just when he wasn't convenient for the storyline to be in it. And in the first episode, it was very convenient that he showed up to begin with. So, I don't know. I kind of question, I don't feel this deep connection with this character at this point, but they're trying at least, right? So I respect that. And then we have the dancers, you could say, trying to distract Lo Sang and his people. Lo Sang and his people immediately find the escape route. So they didn't necessarily distract them for too long, but I really like this catacombs part. And we're splitting up and leading them in different directions and picking them off one at a time. The shadowy, spooky nature of the scenery here, great locations. I don't know if I know it's a real place, but I don't know if this is a set or if it's actually in the catacombs. Either way, it's a really cool environment, and I love that everything's just lit by the flashlights that they're holding is really good. And then here we have a scene that's a callback, obviously, to season 2 with Sophia, because Sophia is a big theme in this season as well. So here we have Laurent getting put inside there and getting told, hey, wait here and I'll come back. And it's almost like trying to complete the circle with Sophia, where Sophia got left behind and then she ended up dying. And now we're trying to fix that. But it's not Carol, though. It just feels a little wrong that it's Daryl doing this and not Carol, because if Carol did this, it could be a way of her dealing with that guilt. You know, it just feels like a callback for callback's sake. I don't feel like it had a purpose in the plot because it's Daryl and not Carol. You know, and I have to wonder, it almost feels like Carol should kind of be here in this scene, but she's just dealing with her own guilt over with Ash. So it does feel like this should have been Carol, I think, doing this. But I do appreciate that it says Laurent right there, so it's just somebody's grave. But definitely just watching this, I'm like, dude, it's just like a thin thing of wood. They're going to see him back there, dude. They're going to shine the flashlight. They very conveniently don't. It just doesn't feel like enough cover. So that's the one part of the episode I'm just like, really? So now we have our big showdowns with the two lead villains. We got Lo Sang. I do wonder if there's any way of getting through to Lo Sang. Daryl doesn't even try. Daryl's very aggressive in this scene. And you'll see there's a cross in the background that's definitely symbolic. And Daryl gets thrown by Lo Sang into the cross. So that's a symbol of the Lo Sang's faith being weak, and he's kind of breaking his own ideology and religion. But then Daryl just very aggressively takes him out, and it seems like anger about the Isabel thing being channeled into that. So in this moment, it doesn't feel like Daryl to me. I get he's saving Laurent. I do wish he was a bit more heroic in this scene and kind of in this season in general. In this scene, it makes sense because he's still dealing with the Isabel situation. Does Daryl know that Lo Sang is the one that killed her? I don't know. But either way, I do feel like Daryl was definitely a little over-aggressive in this season. I would like to see him try to save more people or avoid violence when he can. But it makes sense in context. It's just a kind of feeling I have after watching this season. You know, we've seen him kill like 50 people this season, and it feels like he could have avoided some of it. But that's just me. And then we have Lo Sang's number 2. She wakes up, so she's not actually dead. And Code Ron just kind of knocked her out and then left. So I almost would have rather her died and Lo Sang lived on, because Lo Sang is more of a developed character at this point. And it just feels like we're passing down the villainry from one character to another, and then she's going to die next episode, and that'll be that. So it's the least interesting of the villain characters because we've barely seen her talk, you know, other than the fact that she undercut Lo Sang and was trying to be more aggressive and kill Daryl and stuff. It just doesn't, I don't know, that's just not satisfying to me. So here we are with Carol finally revealing that she lied to Ash. Ash doesn't like that, and he yells about it, and I sympathize. I did feel like for a second he was going to attack her, and I did wonder about the wisdom of having this conversation when they're both elevated above the ground, and he could so easily just shove her down. But anyways, I do like Carol coming clean, though, because she's trying to get rid of her guilt, and she tries to explain it that, you know, she does have this grief and loss over her daughter. But yeah, I think it's a good scene, but I do feel like next episode it's not going to be a main issue. So it's just kind of like we dealt with that and that's it. So it's a little hollow. We'll see how they end up paying it off. And then we have Daryl trying to get through to Laurent. Like, let's go back to America. It's what Isabel wants. It's what I want. He just needs to push through these walls that he's put up to try to avoid the feeling of loss. Earlier in the episode, Laurent is still just kind of his old self. I feel like we should have seen more of a change because of the Isabel thing, that it had more of an impact on him than it did. That would have made this plot line about him dealing with the guilt and about him not wanting to go to America, even though we know he's going to eventually, feel a bit more authentic and a little bit less just kind of like forced, like we need a conflict here, we need a roadblock here arbitrarily, because Laurent obviously did want to go before. Now we got our final conflict, which is the plane can't carry all 4 of them, which I think is something that we all knew going into this. So somebody's going to die, I'm guessing. Nobody's getting left behind. I think Ash is going to die. That's what's going to happen. That's my opinion. So let me know what you guys think. What did you guys think of the episode? What was your favorite part? What did I miss? Let me know down below. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next review. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.